freedom. Now you're grieving at the thought of this human no longer being, seeming like you was dreaming and thinking this cannot be. And you see you're feeling the heat from the fire burning and churning inside you. Look into heaven and praying angels will come and they'll find you. Suffer eternally, torture just like a fetus. Support you, line you up like cattle to the slaughter and sort you. Go into that light, that red beam on my Ruger. I'm ready like Freddy, but no, my last name ain't Kruger. I'm killing you softly, but no, I am not a refugee. Soak you in kerosene and burn you like effigies. Just like a serpent, I strike you like it was nothing. And quicker than liquor, my venom enters your bloodstream. Running your mouth and then thinking that you can handle this. How you're surrounded by velvet, blew out just like a candle, bitch. Come on in. Behind you and pop you, sever your spinal cord. Then kick you and spit on you while you're jerking down on the floor. Watching the life as it leaves your eyes roll into your head. Then empty the clip in your body, making sure that you're dead. Say my name backwards, proceed to speaking in tongues. Then take the soul from your body like I took the air from your lungs. I bathe in the blood of the lamb to get me to heaven's gate. I bathe in the blood of the damned, grinning to steal a taste. Call me the reaper, call me the angel of homicide. I'll come to your family reunion, take out your mama's side. Drag you to hell like them shadows fucking with Patrick Swayze. Drag you to hell like that shit directed by Sammy Raimi. Blow up your spot like the ghost, I'll post you with laser eyes. Then fuck your old lady with a dick made of razor knives. Ride with the hounds of hell, the one king of Babylon. You fuck with the devil, Damien, aka Abaddon. Come on in.
Alright, you guys, so not gonna lie, today's video is gonna suck. I've been trying to sit down to do this for the past hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'm feeling sick to my stomach. Not because I'm sick, just sick thinking about everything I want to discuss today. So if I have to step away from the camera and there's any weird cuts, it's probably just because I'm having a moment or my dog's barking because the neighborhood kids are yelling, and that's what we're dealing with today. So, I speak a lot on the channel about how I was abused and how I went through a horrible living situation and how that ultimately, I believe, helped to affect the outcome of where I wound up in life. Not as an excuse, but just kind of like as a linear timeline. There's a psychological reason why I fell into Antifa, why I fell to the crowds that I was hanging around, why I was in such deep throes of addiction, and quite frankly, if you could see from the latest, these people are idiots. Still dealing with, I guess. Drink a little bit more beer now. It's like I described to Cyprian. It's like go through all this abuse with my father, then I break away, and then the world's thrown into chaos, then I'm in Antifa, and then I break away from that, and then I start this podcast, and then the fake alien invasion starts, and then my old friend who seemingly was in contact with these aliens, I always believed, came into the picture, and it was just always been these crazy, like cosmic levels of synchronistic events and societal factors that just kept pushing me in a crazier and crazier and crazier direction, because I have a tendency to be drawn towards the crazier and darker aspects of life. And I want to understand more why. And realistically, I think it's going to take me the rest of my life to figure that out. And I think for a lot of people out there, that's kind of unfortunately our burden, something that we have to grapple with and always thoroughly examine, because as recent events on the channel have shown, it still leaves me susceptible to corrupt and parasitic forces that want to keep me from being the best me that I can. So I thought it was finally due to sit down and give an in-depth breakdown of my abuse, my relationship with my father, and I think it'll show you guys why the channel is the way that it is. So, I'm a Texan, but I was born in Virginia. I was there until age 3. My father was in the Navy. I believe that I want to say he was involved in some stuff during Operation Desert Storm, or at least that era. He was involved in going out to the Middle East to some degree. And my mother was back at home. They had run away to Virginia because my mother had been raped and molested by her father. There were many people in my family who tried to cover that up. My father wasn't coming from the greatest of family backgrounds either, and he was trying to get away while simultaneously fucking up every aspect of his life from the get-go, it seems. A lot of drugs, drinking, bullshit, secret runaways. He lived his life at the expense of others. And I could be wrong on this fact, but I do believe he was locked in the brig when I was born. I was born at Portsmouth Naval Hospital. Portsmouth. Never been sure how you say that. But he spent a lot of time locked up in the brig on various occasions while my mother's trying to figure out how she's going to raise me at a very young age. Neither of them were even 20 yet. Yeah, mother got pregnant with me in high school. She was actually slated to go and possibly train at for the Olympics for gymnastics. She was really, really deep into that and got pregnant with me. Sorry, Mom. But they were kids thrown into a rough situation, and my mother tried to do the best she could. But my father had a drinking problem, and my father had a lot of anger issues and narcissism and elements of cluster B type personalities that made him a monster. So about 3 years into my birth, Mom decided we had to go, and we had to go back to Texas. He did not take this well. We went to go live with my grandmother and my granddad, who I speak about often on the channel. My grandfather was a pastor at First Baptist Church in Odessa, Texas, and was very well respected in the community and was a true man of God. And he was there to really fill in that void of not having a father figure for a while there. Even when I stopped living with them, I think it was probably like 2 years we lived with them, I would go spend the night at their house every Friday and sometimes Saturday also. That was just the relationship that we had, and it helped me a lot. But so we're living there, and I would have been 3 and a half or 4 when my father tried to kidnap me. I was in church. I believe that I had actually snuck out of the room, pretending that somebody was there to pick me up, which is something that I would do, something to that effect, or something had happened. And I wasn't there, I guess, whenever he came to the front to try and ask for me. It was a little preschool type situation, I believe. So he was there trying to get me because he knew that I would be there. And thankfully, whenever word got to my grandparents that he was there, my grandfather had alerted the sheriffs and the police officers that worked at the church, and they were basically able to put him in handcuffs. All the meanwhile, he's screaming death to my grandfather. Vicious, vicious man. Stole me away. So, fast forward a little bit. Age 15. My mom's remarried. She remarried probably only about less than 2 years after my father to my true father. Um, and just to throw in there, it's always made calling either or dad very difficult. Or when I'm speaking about a father, sometimes people get mixed up on which one I'm referring to. So, for the sake of this, when we're talking about my adoptive father, we'll use adoptive father, stepfather, and then we'll use father, biological father for biological father, just so it doesn't get confusing, because I might misspeak. Even at 28, I still might misspeak. So I'm 15 now, and I'm angry. I'm breaking shit. I'm breaking into model homes. I'm stealing shit. I had a very toxic attraction to the girl next door who had a boyfriend who I was trying to tear them apart, prove that I was the love of her life, treated her like abject fucking shit. I was not doing good at all. I was stealing movies from the local library. I was stealing books. Despite the fact I went there every day and just could have checked them out for free, I just wanted to feel something like I was doing something, whether that thing was good or bad. I began stealing my stepfather's cigarettes and smoking in secret. Wasn't doing great. Was not doing great. Mom and my stepdad tried their best. My perception growing up was that my stepfather was an evil monster and that he wasn't my real dad, and fuck him for trying, which is something that I will always feel regret for because he never deserved it. Literally fight this man, kick him in the nuts. You're a bitch, you're an asshole, you're a piece of fucking shit. I don't want you in my life. I wish you and my mom would just split up, making his life infinitely harder while not knowing a lot of the things that he had going on in his life because I never cared to ask. Things I realized that as I get older, that I was putting him through so much more extra hell than I needed to. So I'm 15 now. And because I can go to the library and all that, I have access to internet. So I'm really tired of not knowing my dad. Well, let's see what Facebook has in store. And I was able to get a hold of, I believe, my stepmom first. Someone who I still have a very good relationship with to this day. She's an amazing woman. Despite a lot of the crazy shit we went through, we're still pretty tight. And I really respect and appreciate her for that. But I wound up talking with her for a little bit, got really excited. You know, your dad hasn't seen you in years. I've always heard these stories about you. This is so exciting. We never thought this would happen. And I was still keeping this a secret because under court order, my father could not speak to me until I was at least 18. I think I kept our communication secret for probably about 5 or 6 months. Every day, a couple times a day, going out in the field, telling my parents I was going to the library. And in reality, I was just going and having conversations and trying to catch up. And it was love bombing, but obviously I couldn't realize it because at the time it's like, well, of course I'm being bombed with love. This is my father. This is man I've been away from for my entire life, basically. Like the man I've always wanted to see. Of course it's going to feel like this. Oh my God, we love the same movies. He's into Marvel. He's into DC. He likes the same cartoons I like. You know, I was starting to get a little more into politics at the time. He's telling me, you know, about Bush and loose change and all this crazy stuff. And, you know, for someone like me, it's just like, obviously there was a huge connection there. And I remember finally breaking down to my mom and crying about it because I couldn't take it anymore. You know, because he would tell me, he'd be like, "You can't tell your mom this. She'll take you away from me again. It'll happen again. I don't want this to ever happen. Like, if we want things to be okay, you have to keep it our secret. You have to keep it our secret." And after a while, it just felt wrong. So I told her. And at first, she was like, "What the hell?" Not angry, but just kind of like, what are you doing? I know who this man is, and I've told you ample stories about him, stories which I never believed, which I should have believed. But I was just like, hey, if any of these stories are true, I can tell you he's a changed man. This is how he's made me feel. This is how he's made time for me. This is where he's at in life. He's tattooing now. He's more successful. He's making more money. And my mom was like, okay. So began to send me gifts. Giant packages of like comic books and like old stuff that he would collect. Like I had the entire Batman Nightfall collection, first issue, second issue, third issue. Same with the Life and Death of Superman. All the big like 1980s and 1990s series that were coming out. I suddenly had in my hand. I was being sent collectibles and video games and movies, and suddenly I had the coolest collection in town. Add on top of the fact that I finally got to reconnect with this man I hadn't seen for years, so it felt like heaven on earth. It felt really cool. So then I start going to see him during the summers, because there were some summers where I'd go and see my grandma for a little bit anyways down in South Texas, but now it was like, okay, now you get to go live with him for the summer and then come back and go to school. And that happened for, I think, well, no, shit, that might have just been one summer, I think, and then I moved. Timelines get really difficult in my head. There's been a lot that's happened. But, you know, when I go to live with him in the summer, he's living in the guest house in my grandmother's house, and he's a traveling tattoo artist, so we're going to all sorts of different people's houses, and I'm seeing a different culture because my mama lives in the suburbs, and my daddy's living in the hood, and, you know, nicer part of the hood, but still very, very trash. It's very podunk. I don't even know if you can call it a hood because a hood would be more active. It's just sadness and misery and gangsters and rapists and pedophiles and junkies. And it's like population couple thousand in a tiny, tiny area. So even coming from Odessa, where there was a lot of craziness, we were still in nicer neighborhoods, though a lot of the chaotic social elements were still in the neighborhoods. This was a little bit more out of my element. But I got along pretty damn well with people. Loved getting to meet new people, get to know their story. You learn the craziest shit on planet Earth when you're doing that. And I got to watch my dad do a lot of art and really aspire to want to do that because I was getting closer to age 18. So it was a really cool process to be a part of. And while I would never do that with my kid, it's still an experience that I would never like trade for the world. It was the coolest, one of the coolest things in my life. Because it wasn't just good and crazy kooky people you got to meet, right? It was the dark motherfuckers, you know, getting to meet people who are involved in Mexican gangs and white gangs and all sorts of different stuff, and just sitting there just kind of pretending like you're minding your own business and hearing some crazy shit, and then sometimes getting pulled into the crazy conversations and getting asked questions and being like, what? And really getting to know that type of world. But yeah, so eventually comes the time where I have to move in with them. And I say have to. There's a minute there I wanted to. And it would usually come up in arguments of, fuck you, you're not my real dad. I know my real dad now. I want to go live with him. And so my mom would be like, no, you need to calm the fuck down. It's not happening. But as I mentioned earlier, there was a neighbor girl who I was putting through hell. And she outed my smoking cigarettes to my little brother. And I just remember in that moment being so pissed off that she would, in my head, frame me that way to my little brother, when in reality she just told him the truth. Get the hell out of my bitch, you stupid fat fucking cunt, you dumb this and that, and blah, 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 slamming on the walls, calling her a bitch and a whore whenever she went onto my front lawn, where her parents and my parents were sitting in lawn chairs because they were really good friends. And everyone's just like, whoa, what the, you need to calm the fuck down. No, fuck this bitch, I'm tired of her fucking shit, she never fucking done it. And she's in tears, of course. Put that girl through so much shit. So eventually, my mom that night called my biological father in tears saying, I don't know what the fuck to do with him anymore. We've tried medicating him. We've tried this. We've tried this. We've tried this. Maybe the only place he can be happy with is you. And at this point, I'm like, fuck. I wasn't excited about it. I was very much like, oh my God, I am being taken away from my home. No, 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 no. I didn't want this. I didn't really want this. I didn't really want this. Too bad you're going. So got on a plane, didn't even really get to properly tell my little brother goodbye because he was really young at the time and they didn't want it to like upset his son or anything, which I still have mixed emotions about. But, you know, I just remember crying, watching them walk away, getting on a plane by myself, not really understanding what had transpired to get there because I'm still young and angry and all that shit. But, yeah, so then I go to live with them. And, it was kind of cool for a minute, but it got really weird really, really fast. The lies began right off the bat because I hadn't heard the conversation between my mother and my father about what had happened. He had convinced me that my mother had told him, if you don't take him, I will send him to military school. Never happened. My mom's a teacher. She cannot afford military school. That idea never came up. I've asked her numerous times. Never, ever, ever. But he said, okay, since that's what she said, and that was your alternative, we're going to treat this like boot camp. I had rules posted on the wall that I couldn't take naps, couldn't do things at a certain time, couldn't sit for longer than whatever. Little reminders all over, you will do this, you will not do this, you will do this, you will not do this. Which sucked, but I was like, all right, whatever. My dad and I, like I said, got along really great. You know, now we could spend a lot of time playing video games together. That's how he would justify the allotted video game time was we got a copy of Injustice, the first game came out, and it's a DC fighting game that's built by the Mortal Kombat creators. Mortal Kombat was a really big one for him and I because he grew up with it and I really enjoyed it, and we both really love DC. So that was our game, and that was our bonding. You know, we'd always go out to buy gift cards so that we could buy the DLC characters when they dropped, and we had a lot of good moments like that, usually built around pop culture. Sorry, no, I'm saying a lot today. But he began to use these moments of bonding and buying things and all these cool things he had accrued for me as permission to treat me like shit. He became very vindictive. He began using me. I remember during the summer, he made me get a job, which is good. You know, parents should make their kids get jobs at a certain point. Like, hey, quit sitting around, go do something. But it was very, very intense and very forceful. And I finally got my first job at Eddie Pack, which was a meat processing plant up the road, maybe a little less than a mile. So I would go to work to do that. And I was one of like 2 white guys in the factory. It was just filled with illegal immigrants, people literally saying the same social security card, like people fresh over the fucking border. It was shadier than all shit. Lord knows what happened behind the scenes there. I don't even want to know.
Out the way, do my thing. That's how it goes. At the back, you see that the box is white over black, or black over white. It's all right. 845 is gonna be a long night. Take a flight on some badass kush. You already know, fuck George Bush. I'm with Obama. Osama. I'm in Eddie Pack and trying to fuck a mama.
It was a cool job. I hated it at the time, but if looking back, if I could work there again, I would. A lot of people in town worked there. A lot of friends that I had. I'm gonna work on saying But I wasn't allowed to keep my money. You need to cash your money and you need to put it in a piggy bank, which for me was a little rubber Deadpool statue with him like posing with the swords. And he's like, you need to not touch it. You need to leave it alone. You need to learn how to save. Fair enough. I hated it. I want to go spend money on video games, but fair enough. I got plenty. Money would always disappear. Money would always disappear. Probably like 80, 90% of what I earned in that era, I lost because he would steal it. And simultaneously freaking out that I'm not working hard enough. So a lot of things began to make him lose his shit. He had not been drinking for years and years, and then suddenly he started drinking again. And the whiskey would amplify a lot of his bullshit, make him very volatile. A lot of instances in town, he was the type of guy you'd have to sit there and just keep your mouth shut and keep your head down while he's like yelling at a cashier, going off on someone, you dumb nigger, you faggot, you this, you spick, you chink. Sorry, it's what I grew up with. These are the words that get used. They ain't good, but they are what they are. I'm sitting here, 16 to I think 18, this was going on, and everyone in the family, even the ones who share all of his qualities, it was just a lot to deal with, and it always created some sort of new crisis or another. So we were always having to clean up after his shit, basically, and simultaneously kiss ass so that it wouldn't happen again. I think it was it would have been my second year there, so it would have been my junior, senior year, because I doubled up to graduate earlier because I got held back in third grade. I was homeschooled and failed the test, so I was always kind of a year behind, so it was a good opportunity to get out on time. I came home with my first B, and it set him the hell off, because to him, the grades were a reflection of how he had improved me. So sending home anything less than an A or a B plus to my mother was very, very strongly discouraged. I came to learn later that a lot of what I was going through, he was trying to create a scenario where he could get my mother back. And he would have drunk breakdowns where he'd tell me that I always loved your mother. She'll always be the true love of my life, and I wish we could be together again. After he'd be done treating me like shit. So, God, trying to remember where I just was at. Oh, the grades. So, yeah, I get my first B. And I come home and everything is ripped out of my room. Texas. Everything is ripped out of my room except for a mattress and a painting of Jesus that's tacked to the wall. He had gone through all of my drawings, all of my notebooks. I became more fascinated in occulty subjects. My grandmother would take me to the bookstore sometimes, which is something that, all my grandmothers did for me. They knew I loved going to the bookstore. And, you'd occasionally try to pull a sneaky because my grandmother's ultra Christian. And I'd be like, she won't know this is a book about Wicca. It's like, here, go lay down, bud. I love you. Go lay down. Go lay down away from the door. It's going to set you off. Come here. Come on. Lay down. No, away from my computer. Go lay down. Thank you. On your bed. You're going to have to make me cut all of this. So I had some journals of like poetry. I would write down lyrics because I like to read song lyrics, because I didn't really understand poetry, but I understood music. And a lot of songs read like poetry. So I'd write down lyrics from like Rammstein, Marilyn Manson, Slipknot, other obscure artists that I had found. And just just kind of like, I guess, get some of my emotions out. I would draw little symbols. I would come up with little alien hieroglyphs and demonic looking imagery and things that I took inspiration from stuff I had seen on Instagram. I had a copy of the Necronomicon, which is what this symbol is from. And the story is largely why I have it on my hand. He believed that I was summoning demons. And he was basically demanding to know what sort of practices I was involved in. And I tell him, like, I'm not really involved in any practices. I just like reading about it and then making kind of art steered into that direction, things that look occulty and trippy and all that. You're a liar. You're doing something. And I never understood why until recently, speaking to my stepmother. But at that time, he began using drugs again. A common drug in South Texas at the time where I was living, because I realized there's not a lot of people familiar with it, was wet. Wet is embalming fluid. I guess the best way that you do it is you take a cigarette and you dip it in the embalming fluid, you let it dry out, you smoke it. And I've never done it, thank God, but it seems to be some sort of weird mix of meth and heroin, and it's for preservation of bodies, so it'll make you go cold and stiff and very zombie-like, and it'll make you lose your shit. There were times, and I thought it was just his customers doing it at the time, not realizing he was doing it also, but where I would come in and there would be people in drug-fueled spirals out in the garage where a tattoo shop was set up, because at this point he operated a tattoo shop out of the house. So he had people in 24/7, and I was kind of like the little assistant helping out where I could. But I remember coming home like one day, for example, and there was a couple black guys in the garage, and they were spun the fuck out. One of them screaming and cussing, I gotta get the fuck out of here. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And everyone's like, dude, don't open the fucking garage door. Don't open the garage door. Because not everything was necessarily on the up and up. So you don't want to go broadcast a tattoo shop to the whole neighborhood. So guy freaks out, lifts up the door. Up front, there are police and a firefighter and an ambulance because little lady next door had a heart attack. So moments like that were very common, but apparently he was doing it. And very similar, I realize now, to a lot of my experiences with cocaine, pills, psychedelics, things that I would hear and see, auditory and visual hallucinations. A lot of it was demonic and very satanic in nature. Realized he was seeing that. And that the whole time he's abusing me, and this is going on, he's seeing Satan in his house and demons coming out of the wall. Add to this, and this is why, this will maybe kind of explain why I gave into so much of what was going on with Larry. Our house was, I don't like this word because I believe it to be very different things now, but our house was haunted. We had a lot of poltergeist activity. A woman had died there, I believe, 10 or 20 years before we had moved in. There was something about that property that reeked of death. There was black mold. There was a lot of weird things. There was a lot of really weird things. Me and my stepmom tried to investigate some things on numerous occasions. You know, footsteps in the attic space, but full-grown footsteps where a full man couldn't walk. Footsteps running upside down on our ceiling from the inside. Things darting across the ceilings and the floors, being watched from outside, being touched in the bathroom. My stepmom talks about how she'd had occasions where her legs were grabbed or grazed, and towels and different things would yank off the walls, or curtains would come down. You'd have moments of peace, and then you'd have moments of feeling like somebody was standing right next to you. My bedroom, before they had moved in, had locks on the outside of the door, and you could see where the bolts were attached. And there was claw marks on the inside of the door from where it seemed like someone, not something, was trying to get out. larger than a dog. It seemed like kids were in there scraping, and there was all sorts of weird crayon drawings on the wall that some of them got scrubbed off, others couldn't, little different carvings. A lot of trauma happened in my bedroom, and I don't know what it was, but it was dark, and you could always, yeah, there's just so much. There were arguments where shelves would rip off the wall entirely, like shelves that were very firmly bolted would be yanked and thrown across the kitchen, and sodas flying through the air out of nowhere like they'd been slapped out of your hand. Like, it sounds crazy, but there was a lot of these types of things happening in this house, and it was setting him on edge. And understandably, I can imagine if you're doing drugs and have that happening, and then all of a sudden you go through your kid's shit and he looks like he's summoning demons. Fair. But it wasn't a normal situation. About this time, towards the end, my father started wanting to play gangster. So he started getting involved with people from different groups like the Aryan Brotherhood and all that shit. He wasn't involved, but he admired those types of characters because he had so much racist hatred and vile and trauma and abuse built into his home life that I think that he admired a group of people with similar ideas to him taking charge of the situation and making names for themselves and making money at the same time. So, because he was around more gangster and militia types at this time, we have now, under the directive of President Obama, Operation Jade Helm 15, which I've spoken about a couple times in the channel. Operation Jade Helm 15 was the first time that the United States military was essentially authorized to practice on United States civilians in terms of surveillance, how they would operate in suburbs, different neighborhoods. A lot of it was based in AI battle training programs. And one of the reasons they had to pull it in the end, they said, was because the AI was outpacing humans. And there was a lot of bunglings that were happening that I think were causing chaos. That for a lot of us in South Texas, we believed that we were about to be attacked by the Obama administration militarily. We believed that. I believed that. And for those unfamiliar, the militarization of the police, all of the tanks and the LRADs and the drones and a lot of more of the assault tactical type weapons that the police got their hands on, that happened during this military operation. During this time, you would see trains that seemingly were hundreds and hundreds of miles long of weapons caches and tanks and jeeps and caskets, all sorts of crazy shit. So for a lot of us down there, it felt like it might be about time that something was going to pop off. My father was of the belief that Obama was the Antichrist at the time, with a lot of other people. So this was freaking him the fuck out. Things were happening as this operation was being bungled. They would do different shows of like force, and like they would try to make like a show of it too for the people, where it would be like planes going and then you'd have like a ton of people drop from the sky. But it was the nighttime operations that got dark, kind of like with Antifa, the things behind the scenes. There were immigrants who were being kidnapped and black bagged. There were houses that were getting their doors kicked down because the systems told the soldiers to go there when it was actually in the neighborhood next door. So a lot of people were having to sign NDAs, but also there was a lot of videos and stuff coming out of, just the craziest military training operations. Like, there'd be some times where it's just like, is that a body? Did someone just get killed? Where did that shot go? And so, kind of like me during Antifa, my father was involved in this news 24/7. And then I think I began probably my deeper diving into the news about that time too, because I was really into Alex Jones, and Alex Jones was covering this all very much to a T. Granted, he was wrong about a bunch of things like we were too, but that's where a lot of the video evidence was coming out. And simultaneously, Ebola was happening too, which was freaking out a lot of people. Not necessarily so much in the United States, But because of all the chaos that was happening, it seemed like there was a lot of operations going on at the time that a lot of people registered it as martial law was coming. I think Obama about this time too put in the law where under a state of martial law, the president would have certain amount of emergency powers. So going after the church fairly hard in a lot of his rhetoric. People were freaking out. And we were getting a lot of these boots on the ground stories of people nearby who were being tattooed or knew people. And, you know, that's just kind of how the information flow worked. So this was freaking him the hell out. And the more it began to freak him out, the angrier he became. The more he was using, the more he was drinking. The abuse became less psychological and more physical over time. He began to treat me like his cellmate, pinning me up against the wall by my neck. He always liked to get right in my face, nostrils flaring, could smell his breath, spitting on your face. What a nasty piece of shit failure I was, how he'd have a different life without me. How I was so stupid I couldn't get my grades done. How come anytime you get emotional, your voice gets high like a little girl? What are you, some kind of faggot? Which I guess could lead us into the next one, when he figured out I was a faggot. A lot of my technology was monitored. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. The friends that I did have, he would often try to have over to interrogate, but would make them feel uncomfortable so they wouldn't come back. Or he'd try to absorb them or their family for clientele so that he can make money off them. But technology was monitored 24/7. I wasn't allowed to have a phone call he wasn't listening in on. I wasn't allowed to send a text that he couldn't read. And a lot of it was, like I said earlier, because he was trying to use me to get back with my mother after so many years. Fucking retard. God damn. I remember being a little less into it and a year into it and sending my mom like a heartfelt text and apology, like, hey, I understand now, things aren't great, I'm feeling really sad, I want to come back home, I miss you guys, I love you guys, I'm so sorry for what I did. It just, like, I'm sorry, Mom. I think I lost my privileges to just about all pieces of technology for a few months after he read that, because according to him, he wanted to sit there when I wrote that letter so that he could make sure everything in it was okay. He wanted to write the letter for me, basically. Stole my tablet, realized that I was jerking off to dudes and not girls. And that's when things got really, really, really bad. Not only is there a military takeover happening, not only is my home filled with demons, but my son is queer. And it was probably about a week, if not 3, where he knew. And he took away all my stuff and he's like, I'm going to sit here until you confess it to me, what you did. And I played dumb for about, 3 weeks, I think it was. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry I took my tablet to school. Don't understand why you're so upset. When can I get it back? That was about the time that Caitlyn Jenner was transitioning Woman of the Year. And people in those circles were getting very, very pissed off with that type of rhetoric. So we would go to H-E-B and different stores, and every single time, these queers, these trannies, these faggots, always had a comment to make. It was like the universe brought every single gay person out in town, because it was just like every day he was just pointing out all these gay people. Going to fucking hell. Should fucking shoot them right now. Fucking failed them. And, I'm just sitting here, like, still like a soldier in a fucking interrogation, just like, not gonna say. And still didn't. And he was getting angrier and angrier by the day that I wouldn't break. And at the time we lived, like I said, the tattoo shop was in our house. It was in the garage. And my stepmother, love her to death, could not say no to fucking cats. So we had close to 15 cats running in the house, most of them being little kittens, kind of in and out, but you can imagine the shit box gets pretty full pretty fast. And sometimes it would get so full that by the time I'd even get home, it was filled up again. So he was mad at me when I walked through the door. Why is the shit box not clean? Well, I cleaned it this morning. I literally just walked through the door, back and forth like, no, you're lazy, you don't do it. I needed this to be done, and I have clients in there. And I remember just throwing down a plate because I was doing dishes at the time and just being like, why don't you fucking do it for once? I was grabbed by my shirt, pinned against the refrigerator. It slammed back and jolted. Everything fell off. Some of the things hit me in the head. Held me there, started threatening me. He had a couple of clients, one of who I think was mid-tattoo. They were staring in like, what the fuck is happening right now? Why is he attacking this kid? Left without even getting the tattoo wrapped or finished up. They were like gone. And I was just like, I have to go. I have to go. I had been plotting a lot that I'll go into in a minute. But I was like, I need to get out right now. This has gone too far. So I try to make my way to the bedroom while he's clawing me and hitting me. And I go in to try to get my wallet and what little bit of money that I have left so that I can bolt down. And my phone. And there's a struggle in the room. He winds up throwing me into the mirror of my bedroom. And I wound up breaking the mirror outwards. I was leaning on the curtain, wound up getting back up. He threw himself onto the ground like a gorilla, had to like hold him down, grapple, jump on over him. He ripped the shirt that I was wearing. I think it's my Iron Man shirt. Really like that shirt. Halfway off my body. And so I'm bloodied. I don't even think I had shoes. And I finally made my way out of the house after he threw me through the front door because he managed to get a push on me there too. I think I broke the screen door, maybe shattered the windows there too. And I'm walking down the road and I get a block away. He's, get back here. Get the hell back here. And then the emotions would change. Son, I'm sorry. Come back. No, I'm not coming back. You fucking piece of shit. And I'm just like, I gotta walk to the police station, which is probably about 2 or 3 miles up the road, hoping that he doesn't track me down. So I go to the police station and I'm in tears. They're in torn up clothes and an officer helps me out. And she's like, all right, sweetie, we're gonna go. We're gonna get your stuff back and we're gonna get this figured out for you. God bless this woman. I should have never said fuck the police. Ever. So she gets there. My dad's going off. Sir, we're here so that this boy can get his property back. He looks down at me. You brought the law to my house, boy. Sir, you need to calm down. Listen here, sweetie. Sir? Oh, I love this moment. Put her hand on her gun, put her hand up. You need to back up. I am not sweetie, I am ma'am. Now this is what we're gonna do. And she helped me get my shit back. I had other ways that I had thought about getting out of the house. There were some thoughts I had of maybe being able to run away. There was one person I knew, I believe his name was Marvin. Nice kid. I had talked to him about potentially driving me out of town, potentially to Houston, dropping me off downtown, and if I gotta be homeless, I'll be homeless. I thought maybe I could like hitchhike back home, show how bad it was by showing up on their doorstep and being like, hey, I'm back, like, I need you, I need your help. And then there's the other option, which I pondered a lot more deeply than I care to admit. And I thought I could kill him. I thought that if he died, that this guy would cause so much shit in town that the police wouldn't care to investigate it any further if it were done under certain conditions. I figured with the amount of threats that he had made towards people that he was going to wind up killing someone anyways. So maybe I'd be doing the world a favor. There's, of course, the thought of, well, I've been wanting to kill myself this whole time. Put down a dog with my own hands. Pull up the thumbnail for that video for those who haven't heard it, because I don't think I can go into that one right now. I don't talk about that one a lot. But that's how I thought of him at that time. You're a dog that needs to be put down. My thought was that there was a hole in the back of the garage that connected to the dryer and the washer, and that the garage's walls were made of wood. And that if I could create a trail of litter mixed in with lint and things that would catch fire from the outside, that maybe I could make it seem like maybe, I don't know, the neighbor had come and smoked a cigarette and thrown it over and it had burned. Like, there was holes in the plan. It wouldn't have gone great. But if I could just burn this bitch down, even if he lives, he'd have nowhere to house me. But then my stepmother was a saving grace, I think, in that, because I wouldn't want anything to happen to her. Because she was getting abused too, in a lot of ways. A lot of ways. She's got more fucked up stories than I do. These are just the ones I care about sharing publicly too. There's stories that will never be shared on this channel, because realistically it would result in more blood, trauma, and potentially even death. But I thought really hard about that for a long time. I shared a video recently on one of the Triple B MP3s. It's a song by Skits Craven called Mama's Husband. And that was it. Right down to that kid's wall being all tacked up with all stuff, a giant Watchman smiley face, which is funny enough the icon of the symbol on my channel. It wasn't just the preservation of myself. It felt like the preservation of others. He's going to kill my family. Thankfully, I didn't wind up doing that, and I wound up going to stay with my grandmother, who she lived out of town, probably about 45 minutes away, so still close. It was very uneasy. There was a lot of tension back and forth because of this. But come the last week of school, because this was about 3 weeks from graduation, so that was a big reason she took me into. She's just like, you know, sweetie, just finish graduation. Get that piece of paper. Don't let him rob you of this. And there's still, I have dreams about it too. I think there's still some sort of internal regret that I didn't drop out and go earlier to save myself. But then I'm also simultaneously glad that my stepmother and my grandmother's support helped push me through that. But I do have dreams where I decide to run away from Yoakum and drop out. I think in my head that maybe that's one of those life moments that feels like life could have been different, but I'll never know. But last week of school comes. My father, being the narcissistic personality that he was, you know, one of the reasons I wasn't allowed to have friends or mentors or anything like this was because it would take attention away from him. He envied that. So whenever I began working in writing, these after-school writing programs for like UIL, which is like, you know, high school academics, you go, you try to write, win awards, that type of thing. I started doing this and was really excited to do this because reading was something I enjoyed. Writing was something that I wanted to get better at. And he was accusing me of fucking my teacher. I go to this room surrounded by all these other kids, and we're learning about verbs and adjectives and summary structures and synopsis and all the standard English shit. Make sure we got that on point for when we go out of town to do our little event. Maybe have some pizza or McDonald's at lunch. The only extracurricular activity I was involved with. Like, And I guess in my absence, this just kept getting fueled. That faggot teacher's fucking my son. That faggot teacher's fucking my son. That faggot teacher's fucking my son. So he began issuing threats that he was going to shoot up my classroom. He was going to take out that teacher and anybody who stood in his way. So he had to talk to the principal about this. He was banned from graduation. They were trying to get law enforcement involved with it to some degree, but fell through. But I remember it was like the last day of school, I think it was. Just walking through the hallways, surrounded by all my peers, everyone I'm in school with. And we get an announcement in the hallway, which never happens. Attention all students. Mr. Turk's class will now be held on the second story of the main building in room so-and-so. Sorry for any inconvenience. And I just remember looking around and everything went slow motion and I could see everybody's individual faces react to that moment of, why? That's weird. What happened to Mr. Turk? Did something happen to his room? And I couldn't say shit. And I remember being so apologetic to him. Such a good man. He was just like, kid, this isn't your fault. But day after graduation, I went to go live in Waco with my aunt and my cousins. And I got out. And cyber stalking began. My online presence was always being monitored. I was being called from different numbers. I began receiving death threats from various different accounts that had just been created with different names. There were people in town who he chose to start fights with on my behalf, such as a pedophile who was sleeping with a girl who was my ex after like 2 or 3 weeks of like a, little high school kid relationship that didn't even amount to sex. It was just awkward. But I treated her like shit. And, she ultimately wound up turning to a pedophile, for comfort and for a relationship. And my father had at one point picked a fight with this individual and I think began kind of reactivating that in him a little bit. So I noticed different people in town were sending me different weird messages, but then a lot of the time it was him. I know where you live. If you ever come back here, we'll cut you up. We'll do this. You can never get away. All this shit. He began going on all my friends' accounts, all my family. He began to use accounts with his names, with pseudonames. And this happened for years and years and years and years. And it's still happening to some degree. It still happens with my stepmom. He still tortures all the women he's ever been with. He's been with 3 separate women that have been like core relationships in his life. And more than that, technically, but every single woman or child that's come into his life, they run away as far away from possible. And, we all share this, quirk that we all have dreams that we're being kidnapped, killed, or buried by this man. And until the day he's dead, we're still going to live in fear of that. We all agree it's going to be a really good day. But I remember I wasn't dealing with it well. Once I got into Waco, I was popping a lot of pills, Xanax, fucking Oxycontin, drinking a lot, starting to get really heavy into smoking pot. Cocaine was around occasionally. I was going to school at this time because my aunt said you have to go to college if you're going to be here. So I went to a community college for a little bit, but college structure was just shit. I wasn't doing anything I loved doing. I pretty soon just started dropping out to go do drugs and read books like, over by the lake. And but the stalking kept continuing, and the anger and the frustration that built up, because it was me that would invite it back in. I'd be like, hey, I'm feeling, maybe I fucked up, right? Because I'm so twisted. Maybe this was all my fault. So, hey, Dad, I love you. I'm sorry. How have you been? Which would then just ultimately spiral. It's happened multiple times. But I don't know if this is the first or second time that the blowups happened in Waco, because there's two main ones. But I think the first one was actually this one. So, I hate these stories. He's going off the deep end, and he's sending all these threats to everybody. Everybody's in his path one night. I can't remember what happened, but I get a call from my uncle after he had said something very concerning. And my uncle, I believe, was in New York at the time, because he's a tattoo artist. He's working in a shop out there. And he said, I don't know what's happening, but it's, your dad's saying that he's going to kill your grandmother, and that he's on his way to her house with a shotgun right now. And I can't get a hold of him again. He's not picking up the phone. And I just remember freaking out and spiraling and getting ready to go into my truck, and I was going to go kill him then. I didn't care what I had to do. If I had to steal money, if I had to steal someone's gun, I was going to make that drive down south, and I was going to kill him, even if it meant killing myself. And I said as much. And my aunt, she was a paramedic at the time, she said, if you get into that car, I'm going to have all of my friends in the police and ambulance and fire, everyone is going to be looking for you. And if you have to go sit it out in jail and breathe for a night, that is what you will do. So she kept that shit from happening. That was one of the blow-ups. He didn't wind up doing it. He still abuses her to this day. But the second time, a really bad thing that I think my dad put into me was that whenever I felt fearful or scared or intimidated in any way, I had to make myself meaner and scarier than anybody else. So whenever I started receiving threats one day of just the usual bullshit, I said, all right, you dirty old fuck, let me throw you a curveball. I'm going to slit your fucking throat. Okay? I'm going to slit your fucking throat, and I'm going to sit there, and I'm going to make you watch while I rape my fucking stepmother with a butcher knife, because at that point I believe she was complicit in this, when in reality the poor thing was being abused and being manipulated into a lot of this. These are things I said. And those were just a few of the threats, because I had to be the meanest monkey. So after that, as fucked up as it was, this man who had sent me all these death threats under the sun sent a picture of a statement that they were sending to the police on a police website. And less than 30 minutes later, as I'm freaking out and panicking about this, police lights in red and blue are flashing inside my house from the outside. I go cold. I'm freaking out. I'm like, fuck. I had just told my cousins about what had just happened, and I showed them the screenshot, and they're like, what the hell is happening, dude? What the hell is happening? And I remember just taking a deep breath, turning the doorknob, opening the door, putting my head down, and I just walked into the middle of the lawn with my hands in the air. I get to the middle of the lawn. I look up. Similar to the tweaker in the earlier story, the woman across the street had a heart attack. They were not there for me. Poor thing, she was a very sweet lady, but they are literally there loading her body her, well, I don't know if it was a body at that point, but they're loading her up into the back of an ambulance. And I'm just sitting there like, everything okay? Like I go up and I walk and I check upon him. But I just remember being like, what the fuck was that? And I would just walk in. And my cousin, he'd been crying a little bit, I think, and he was just like, man, whenever you showed me that report, I was just praying for you. He's like, I just went to my room, I got on my hands and knees, and for the first time, I prayed. And I appreciate that prayer because I think it saved my ass. But a lot of horror stories like that I could go into more, so many more. You know, throw a couple more out there. Learning about my father's racist past, along with his interest in groups like the Aryans. One thing that he did that I've mentioned once before on the channel, he convinced me that my grandfather was the head of the KKK. I didn't even believe this until after I had gone on Buck Angel. My mom had sent the interview to my grandmother, and we had a discussion. We had a huge opening up about it. My grandfather couldn't have been further from. But because he wanted to hide his associations, he made me believe that this man, who was one of the father figures that was there to fill the void and show me what it meant to be a fucking man, was a Nazi. You know, there was a man he lived next to at one point who either scratched him with his nail or threatened to scratch him and had HIV. By the end of that scuffle, the cops are called. My father is buck naked on a roof with the police light shining down on him from a helicopter with a machete in his hand, talking about how he's going to go and chop up that little monkey. Or a lone little teenage black girl walking down the streets of downtown Yoakum in the middle of the night, who has a drunk man stumble onto her with a big knife. Says, you better start running, bitch. I'm going to rape you. That's who my father was. That's who my father is. My father's the devil. But I think the point of these stories that I'm sharing right now is to show you, if you look at the rest of this channel, did the apple fall so far from the tree? I don't say these stories as a boo-hoo, woe is me, someone needs to go take a look at my daddy, he's an evil man. I'm doing it because I want to understand my psychology. I want other people to understand my story. And for people to realize, like, most of the people that I got involved with in Antifa, these are the stories that we built our relationships on. The politics were there to be sure, but the broken familial systems and the commonality in stories like this are what build these groups. I would often feel like I couldn't talk around about these fucked up stories in front of other people within the group because their stories were infinitely worse, to harrowing degrees. So I just want to share this so that maybe we can think about things a little bit differently. Try to step into somebody else's shoes, see the evil of the world, to realize that the sins of the father really can be passed down to the son. But what the fuck do we do about it at that point? Because if I allowed it, if I at any point in my life allow it, then I'm damned to hell just like my father. Because that man's going to fucking hell. But I'm going to do what I can to make sure that when I die, I never have to see that miserable old fuck again. And a big part of doing that is making sure that I tell my story. Because as much as my voice was attempted to be censored, and I would be told things like, you were a happy kid and nothing was wrong, and that everything you say is a lie, and that you're just rewriting history, and all this shit, I know what my fucking truth is. And we all need to figure out what our own truths are. Otherwise, it's going to eat us alive and we're going to hurt other people. All of us. I don't think any of us have any exception to that. Some of us are just meaner than others. Love you guys. Thank you for hearing out my story. Peace and love.
You are dead.
No one can kill a Jedi.
How wrong I was.
Do you remember the day you left Tatooine? So full of hope, starting your new life as a Jedi. I held your face in my hands, and I told you not to look back.
That boy is gone.
I see him through your mask. The same eyes of my little Annie. You don't need to carry this darkness anymore. There is still time.
Time is a luxury I no longer possess.
That isn't true, Annie. You can still finally make your dreams come true. Let go of the pain inside you, and don't look back.
I miss you so much.
This path you walk is not the one I foresaw for you. But it is not too late to change course. The Force is a river that flows. You need only let go of your anger, your hate, and let it carry you back to the light.
It is all I have left.
The light you have is more than what you've lost. It is what you can still become. It is the strength to face the storm within you and find peace. Redemption is not for the perfect. It is for the brave. You were meant to rise, not remain buried beneath your pain.
I am beyond redemption. I've done things no one should ever have to live with.
Forgiveness is not something you earn, Anakin. It is something you accept. And it begins with forgiving yourself.
The Anakin I knew was strong. Not because of his power, but because of his heart. That's where the pain comes from, isn't it? You've spent so long trying to bury it, but it hasn't gone away.
You never understood what it meant to lose everything.
I did, Anakin. I lost you. I lost my brother. And for years I told myself it was my fault. I trained you, guided you, and when you fell, I thought it was because I had failed. There was a time I lost faith, but you are still my brother, and I believe he will bring balance.
Belief does not undo what I've done.
You're not bound by the choices you've made. You can still choose what comes next. You may not believe it now, but you are not beyond redemption. Until then, I will be watching over you, waiting for when that day comes.
Then you'll be waiting forever.
If that's what it takes, I will.
You tell yourself all you have left is anger and hate. But it's not, is it?
You are the remnants of a man who was weak.
Maybe. But I'm still here, aren't I? Still buried beneath all that armor, all that hate. You've tried to kill me, to silence me, but I don't go away, do I? I'm the part of you that remembers. The part you can't destroy, no matter how hard you try. You know the truth.
What truth is that?
That you hate yourself more than you ever hated the Jedi. That it wasn't their failure that destroyed her. It was yours. You told yourself you did it for her. That everything you became was to save her. But that wasn't true, was it? You made it about you. Your fear. Your anger. Your need to control what you couldn't bear to lose. And it killed her. You killed her.
I have lived with that truth every day. It is my punishment, my penance. I have accepted it.
If you had, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be standing at the door of her tomb, afraid to take another step. You've spent years trying to forget. But she's still here, isn't she? In the cracks of your armor, in the silence between each breath.
I killed her. There is no forgiveness for that. She was everything to me.
Forgiveness isn't about earning it. It's about letting go. Letting go of the anger, the fear, the darkness you've wrapped yourself in to hide from what you feel. You think this pain honors her? It doesn't. It's only destroying what's left of you. The time will come when you'll stand at the edge of a choice. You'll have to decide whether to keep holding on to the darkness, to the fear that binds you, or to let it go and do what's right for Luke. That moment will reveal the truth about the man who is beneath the armor.